So, my name is Alex Preissig. I am the CSGA Vice President of Internal Operations for the fall 2025 term. And today I'm facilitating the Navigating Letters of Recommendation session as part of our third year Connect event series. And the purpose of this event is to help third year students navigate how to obtain letters of recommendation, learn some basics of letters of recommendation, and otherwise think about who they're going to get their letters from as they navigate their core clerkships. We wanted to have this early on so that as you progress through the next academic year, you can think about who your letters are going to come from, how your letters are going to look like when you finally apply in what will be September of 2026. And a lot of this information that you're going to see today actually comes from OCA. They have a lot of resources over there in the Office of Career Advisement, and a lot of the content in this presentation mirrors what they have to say because of the quality of the material. But we as CSGA wanted to ensure that the clinical students were made aware of this information as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So we know about letters of recommendation from when we applied to our undergraduate schools, from high school, and from when we had to apply to medical school, or from whatever we were doing at the time. But of course, it's just good to start with the basic overview, right? So your letter of recommendation is going to be a letter written for a student by someone the student has worked with. This is preferably going to be a physician, an attending physician, someone who is licensed to practice medicine, who can see you in a clinical capacity and objectively determine whether or not you have the competencies necessary to be a good physician. Furthermore, this letter writer can vouch for the student in terms of professionalism, empathy, work ethic, commitment to the specialty, et cetera, et cetera. This is someone who is willing to put their own reputation on the line to endorse the student and say that this student has what it takes to join whatever residency program or be successful in whatever field that the student wants to join. Excuse me. Furthermore, the point of the letter is to enhance the content of your residency application, right? So you're going to have, pardon me, you're going to have a very comprehensive residency application when you go ahead and gather all your materials. You have your USMLE test scores, your transcripts from your clerkships, your meaningful experiences, your personal statement, and all of this paints you in a very interesting portrait to advocate for yourself as to why you would be a good candidate for a certain residency application position. And the letter is meant to enhance that, to say that in addition to the content that you have come up with, that these physicians can also say, yes, I fully support this candidate for whatever endeavors this person is setting forth on. So that's why it's very important to ensure that you have strong letters. Now, many people may not know this, but the types of letters can actually be categorized in certain ways, comparing and contrasting them based on the setting or the facility that the letters come from. First, you can characterize letters by them being general or specialty specific. A general letter would be one in which the letter writer is writing about the student in the context of why that student would be a good, well-rounded, effective physician. This is just someone who, okay, the student, I've seen them as a medical student in whatever field that that person goes into, they're going to be a strong physician. They're going to be successful. They have the competencies and the skills necessary to be effective in whatever field. Versus a specialty specific letter in which the letter writer is saying, okay, this is why this person would be effective specifically as a surgeon as opposed to anything else. Or this is why this student would be an amazing psychiatrist as opposed to anything else. So when you are obtaining letters, you got to think about who you're getting them from, because you need some people to write about you, generally speaking, in that you're going to be an amazing physician, and you're going to need people to talk about why you're going to be amazing in the particular field that you are applying for. Next, you're going to compare clerkship letters versus observership letters. Now, clerkship letters are going to be pretty much from what we're doing. We have our hands-on clinical experience. We're able to do the physical exams. We're able to do procedures like suturing or drawing blood or wrapping or whatever else that we're doing. It's very hands-on, and that's a very different image versus an observership. Observership is more of you're the fly in the wall, you're shadowing. You don't really have too much ability within the context of the observership to do hands-on stuff, but the person writing the letter can still see you as a professional in healthcare. Next, you can compare an academic letter versus a private practice letter. An academic letter would be from a facility that's like a teaching hospital, something where the purpose is to educate residents and to educate medical students, and you're learning as a team and working together as a team to take care of patients. This is as opposed to a private practice in which you are working with perhaps an attending physician who owns his or own private clinic, and the purpose isn't really to engage in learning per se. It's a business setting, right? You are helping and assisting in patient care for those who need outpatient services, so on and so forth. And then finally, you can have a research letter. There are opportunities where medical students can engage in a research capacity, and perhaps the private investigator of the project is an MD or a DO, and that person can vouch for the student and show that the student is good at a scientific inquiry, such as posting, uh, discussing poster presentations at conferences, investigating the literature, coming up with a hypothesis, actually doing some kind of uh, work that's not entirely clinical, but just does show the student as a well-rounded entity. From what I understand, the clerkship letter is going to be a bit more valued by residency applications than an observership letter, and academic letters are going to be valued more than a private practice letters. With regard to the general versus specialty specific, you're going to need both to be a well-rounded to have a well-rounded application. And your research letter, that's optional because not everyone partakes in research, not every specialty values research, but I still included it here just to be thorough so it's on your radar in case you want to go ahead and obtain one of these letters. Something that you should be aware of is the development of the standardized letter of evaluation. You may hear some of your colleagues talk about slow letters, right? So now a slow letter is a letter that's comprehensively different than other letters because the template is fundamentally different, right? If you were to look on the web internet and look up the template of a slow letter, it's not in the traditional format of a physician writing a no, novel, if you will, paragraphs articulating why, in their opinion, someone is going to be a good candidate. This slow letter uses a template to evaluate whether or not a candidate has a list of values and competencies for a specific field. So the template's going to be much more of, did this student objectively meet the criteria? Do they meet these check boxes as opposed to another student? And I listed three different specialties here that use these slow letters for certain. There may be others out there. I'm not entirely sure, I'll be honest, but I do know from many of my colleagues that these three specialties for certain place a lot of emphasis on a slow letter: emergency medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, and physical medicine and rehabilitation. Now, something that is very important that I want to emphasize is that as students, you need to be active participants in your own residency application process. So I did include the links to the different organizations so you can go ahead and learn more about slow letters, which electives and which hospitals will give you a slow letter if you need one, which programs require slow letter, which one they don't. Just make sure you are doing this additional research on your own so you can be well prepared while you're going through your core clerkships. Furthermore, there's also an application that's part of AAMC. It's called the Residency Explorer. The Residency Explorer is a software program that allows you to research and investigate all sorts of different residency programs. Just bear in mind that through no fault of their own. Things change regularly and not everything's up to date all the time. Just make sure when you're going through Residency Explorer that you know for sure what you need to obtain from a specific program. When in doubt, whatever the specific program you're applying to wants, always abide by that as opposed to any other resource because the programs themselves, they know what they want. They're going to advertise that, and it's up to you as the applicant to ensure that you know what the requirements are for your respective programs. There's also another thing that is out there specifically for the internal medicine folks. It's called the structural evaluation letter. This, from what I've seen, this is on the Alliance for Academic Internal Medicine. It's a different organization than the American College of Physicians, which is also the main internal medicine group or that is out there. But this group, the AAIM, has talked about the SEL, which is in layman's terms, effectively a slow letter for internal medicine. But I've included a bit more information here because of how many students apply to internal medicine. I just want to make sure you have lots of details here. This letter isn't mandatory per se, but it is recommended. Some programs may have it be mandatory. So of course, double check your program requirements. The point of it is to replace a potentially the chair slash departmental letter, but it can also replace a standard letter of recommendation. That's just me clarifying why they felt the need to introduce this new letter format. But again, always abide by what a program wants. This is a newer document. So some hospital training sites may not be structured yet to produce all the information sought out in the SEL. So just be aware of that when you're procuring this letter. If you want to include it in your application or if you need to include it in your application about where you need to get it from. And these letters are uploaded into ERAS in the same manner as a standard letter of recommendation. But the point of these slides is to let you all know that such differences in variations of letters does exist. So now, when it comes to the number of letters that you want to obtain, you can have plenty of letters. You can have as many as you want. You don't need to send out all of them. Quite frankly, you probably won't. If you have a lot of letters, you may not need to send them all out. They may end up being backups depending on who you got them from or at what point, at what clerkship you obtain them from, and perhaps based on your timeline or based off your unique experiences as you build rapport with different professionals, you may find that some letters may not be required anymore. But the point is, while you can have more letters than necessary, most programs ask for 3. And the importance there is some specialties or programs may have a problem with sending out more than required letters. So that's why you want to have a firm understanding of what requirements each program has, right? If you send out more letters than what they want because you feel that you have 5 or 6 super strong letters for whatever reason, and you want to send them to a program, that may not necessarily bode well in your favor because these programs have a lot of applications to go through. They have a lot of letters to read. And if you send more than what they ask, that may not necessarily paint you in a good picture. So just be cognizant of that. And then finally, with general guidelines, they say to have at least 2 specialty specific and at least 1 general. So that bear that in mind as you're progressing and be cognizant about who you may want to obtain a letter from. So now, with regard to letter writers, the information on this particular slide may be obvious, but I'd rather include it just to give you things to consider when you are working with these people, when you're building rapport and building relationships with these physicians, and what you want them to see in you when you're working with them. So, of course, physicians who have witnessed you in a clinical setting, physicians who are familiar with your capabilities, someone who knows your skills, your ability to talk to people, your ability to work on a team, your commitment to a field, to healthcare, someone who can articulate that in a letter format because these people should know you well. Residency programs are going to know what is fluff and what isn't, and the level of familiarity a letter writer has with the student that they're writing about. physicians who can strongly vouch on your behalf. You want someone who is willing and able to talk about you in a professional manner because these people are, they are pushing you forward and endorsing you for a specific specialty. You want to make sure that you have a strong relationship with them. And of course, physicians who have seen you potentially in a research capacity. If you're procuring that research letter that I mentioned earlier, then of course you're going to want to work with this physician in some kind of research project, some case that you can articulate well. Oh yeah, I've worked with this person. We worked on projects, case reports, presentations. We published together, so on and so forth. And have productive research experience, and you can go ahead and ask for a letter because you know that you've done good work with that person. How to ask is always very important. There is an art form to asking these people to write these letters on your behalf because they don't have to, right? You're approaching these people and hoping they would do you a solid. So if you ask them in a way that is unfavorable, unprofessional, that's not going to be well for you. So, of course, here are some tips to go about it. You're going to want to approach them in a one-on-one setting. Don't mean want to do it, publicly. You want to make sure that it is a setting in which you feel some kind of familiarity with them. There's a relationship there, and you can act on that when asking for your letter. Provide them with an up-to-date CV or personal statement if they ask for it, simply to allow them to be more comprehensive in what you're doing, give them a more robust picture as the type of the person you are. They're going to see what you've written, they're going to see your CV, they're going to see more, they gain some insight, see more about you, and that's going to enhance what is hopefully already a strong relationship that you have built over time with this person. Make sure you ask earlier rather than later. Like, don't ask for the last until the last minute. Don't wait till the last minute. I know people personally who it's, last week when the September 2025 cycle is starting for people who are matching, of course, in March of 2026. And I've seen my buddies be stressed out because it's the day before or it's the day of when they're supposed to hit the submit button, and letter writers are still not uploading letters. So be proactive, ensure that you are asking earlier so that number one, the letter writer has a sufficient amount of time to write a strong letter. And number two, it gives you the comfort of knowing that your letters are up to date and you don't have to be stressed in the final days of September. For the people watching this presentation, what will be September of 2026, as you're getting your application prepared and you're not sweating, wondering where letters are. You already have them in your portal online. And always remember, if you need to follow up with a letter writer, do so in a professional communication. Send an email, something, hey, hope you're doing well, type of thing. Don't be aggressive. Don't be mindful that you're asking attending physicians to help you out. Be cognizant of that. Don't do anything that's going to jeopardize your relationship with these people. I know that it's a stressful situation, but you always need to ensure that you, for your own professional well-being and your own professional self going forward, you need to ensure that you're always communicating with these people in a professional manner. If you, sometimes they forget, sometimes we're people, these are people, right? They're busy, they have a lot of responsibilities. Just be mindful of how you're talking to them because you may need their support down the line. You never want to jeopardize a relationship with an attending physician simply because you're frustrated in the moment. So now, with regard to some rotation considerations, these are some details as you're going forward to help you plan with regard to how to for a particular letter. So one example is the preferred specialty. So the example I gave is if you're applying to psychiatry, ask for a letter during a psychiatry sub-internship, and you're working using this example, you're working very closely with psychiatrists. They're going to see you as a potential psychiatrist. They can vouch for you in that aspect. And that, of course, applies to other sub-Is as well. If you are in your OBGYN sub-I and you're working with obstetricians all day long, they can see you as a potential OBGYN. That's, of course, a preferred specialty type of consideration. There's also your specialty of interest. For example, if you're applying to internal medicine has a long list of fellowships that you could apply for afterward. So you could ask for a letter during your gastroenterology elective clerkship. Because if you want to go into internal medicine and you're doing an elective that is a fellowship of internal medicine, you can use that letter to help enhance your interest into internal medicine. You can do this with other specialties as well. If you're interested in anesthesia and you're able to do some elective regarding pain management, that could help you with that field. Or if you're interested in sports medicine, that can help you with family medicine as well. Just little considerations like that. Another big one that you can also do is complementary specialty, because there are some specialties that have a lot of engagement and interaction with other specialties. A very important one is, for example, let's say you're applying to family medicine, and family medicine does have some aspects of pediatrics in the training program. So what you could do is if you have a strong pediatrics core clerkship, you could ask an attending pediatrician to write a letter that will help you for your family medicine residency application. And the key for the complementary specialty is many students think that all their letters must come from the specific specialty, and that's not necessarily the case. There are some overlap, between the different specialties that can help enhance your application. For example, if you want to apply to surgery and, urology has a lot of surgical components. So you can, if you're doing a urology elective, you can obtain a letter and that can enhance your surgery application. So the point is there are different considerations as to how you can best individualize your application. Don't think it's very rigid and you have to think, oh, if I'm applying to only, IM, I have to do everything through IM. That's not necessarily the case. So I just want to bring this to your attention so you can plan accordingly. There are two options, just like applying to medical school for regarding the letters. You can either view them or you can waive your right to view them. The thing is, if you do not waive your right to view them, the letter is perceived as less legitimate by residency programs. I guess it has something to do with the idea that if you know the content of your letter, you can somehow influence or somehow alter the content in some way, and consequently, the letter is perceived as less legitimate as opposed to you saying that you've waived your right to view them and it's whatever you're trusting the rapport and the relationship that you've made with the attending physician to speak for itself. From what I understand, the preferred practice is to waive your right. I'm under the impression that waiving your right to view your letters is perceived as better and is going to help you with the residency process later. Now, collecting letters of recommendation is important, of course, because you need to ensure that they're collected in a certain fashion, right? There are three options I just want to bring to everyone's attention. There are uh, three options. The first one is opening an ERAS application account, have the letters be uploaded to the account, and certify the information without selecting a program. Let me just pause for a second and clarify what that means. I know this is ERAS. I know you can also do residency CAS. I'm not as familiar with residency CAS. For those of you who are doing residency CAS, the EM and the OBGYN people, please investigate that. Most specialties are through ERAS, so that's why I'm discussing that. ERAS has the ability for you to create an application account and have the letters be uploaded without you selecting a program and submitting. The process would be, and I hope this isn't too confusing for you guys. So just take a second to hear what I'm saying. You can open your own account. You'd have to do like a token and everything. There's a whole token process. It's a huge pain. But the point is you can have the letters uploaded, and when you certify the information, the letters become data in the system. And if you are not applying in a particular cycle, you can have that data be are automatically regenerated for the subsequent cycle. I'm going to use now as an example. Let's say you're in a core clerkship now and you have a letter and it's already written. You've had a beautiful relationship with this person and you need the letter uploaded. Of course, you're in a core now, it's going to end soon, and maybe next summer you don't know where this person's going to be. You want to make sure that the letter is secure now. What you could do is you could go ahead and create an ERS application now. You'd have to buy the token, which is frustrating, but it is what it is. You can simply go through the prompts and everything and then certify the information without selecting a program. Don't apply. And by certifying the information, the data is stored there. And there's a way next cycle, because the current cycle is going to end in May of 2026, around there, April or May 2026, I believe. You can then go ahead and have that information be automatically generated for your ERAS application for the cycle that starts in the summer of 2026. And I really wanted to clarify that because I don't want anyone who's watching this recording to think, oh, I can just go ahead and submit whatever. No, don't submit. Just certify the info. You're gonna have to buy another token a year from now. That's why it's a pain in the neck process. But I'd rather you guys know the information than do what's best for you later. Option two is ask the letter writer to hold on to the letter until whenever it is that the student is applying to residency. That's fine, but just do be aware that the risk is you may not be able to get in touch with someone a year from now. Just make sure you're able to follow up with this person, make sure you're able to get a response from this person, because you don't know what's going to happen in a year. There's of course scenarios where doctors move or doctors leave hospitals or teaching facilities and they go somewhere else. So following up may be a pain. So of course, while having the letter writer hold on to the letter is not a bad option at all. It's a lot cheaper, of course, than buying two tokens. It just increases the risk that you may not be able to be in touch with that person later. So just be cognizant of that in terms of ensuring that you have proper contact information. Option three is there are folks that we can talk to that are employed by Ross, RUSM coordinators. There are also people in the hospitals, undergraduate medical education directors. You can see if they are willing to store the letters on behalf of the student and upload them on behalf of the student. This is something that is hospital specific. Some hospitals will be like, yeah, sure, we will store all your letters, and then when the time comes, we'll upload them. And then some hospitals will be like, no, we don't do any of that. That we don't get involved. We don't want to be another piece of the puzzle. That's all up to the student letter writer. So feel free to ask your facility if they're willing to hold on to letters. It's not a bad thing to talk about. I do see a question in the chat. With how much time beforehand would you recommend asking for letters? A few weeks or 1 to 2 months? I would say that it depends on your relationship with the letter writer, and I would say it depends on your intention. I would say that with some of our cores, that you are in the core for perhaps 12 weeks. Maybe you can wait till the end of the near the end of the rotation after you've built rapport with a certain physician or after you've built the relationship, taken some time to build relationship with the physician and the team to ask. I would say perhaps with an elective rotation, since you're only in an elective for 4 weeks, maybe you want to make it known at the start of the rotation, hey, I'm really interested in pursuing the residency program that's associated with this particular residency or fellowship by which I'm doing this elective. I want to make my intention early on so you can, in the next 4 weeks, really evaluate me and really see me in objective setting. It's one of those things where it's use your best judgment. I would not be able to give you a one size fits all answer. I would say that if you feel that you have a strong rapport with a physician or there's a specialty that you are interested in, I would say make your intentions known relatively early. Like don't spring it on them on the last day of the rotation when they may not have even realized that you're interested in a certain specialty. Kind of feel it out. Use your best judgment as a medical student as a medical professional to ascertain when the best time is. With regard to asking before applying, I would say definitely follow up in the early summer. If you are applying in September of 2026 and you need letters, make sure you are following up in June or July of 2026. I would say August is kind of late because, some people may not have written the letter yet. I would also artic argue that if you know your specialty of interest, but it's earlier on in your elective list or your core list, and you feel that time may go by, it may be good to ask in the rotation, to have the letter be written earlier while the person is fresh in your mind. For example, if you started your course, let's say in, December, and you're applying in September, and your specialty of interest was your first core, that letter writer may not remember you as well because it's been a number of months. Memory decay is just a thing for all of us. So that's another consideration as well. All of this is just general information that will hope shape your decision into how you go about what is best for you in obtaining a letter of recommendation. The timeline for uploading is also very important. You're going to want to try to have everything uh, a week prior to the application release date. This is not a hard and fast deadline. There's no actual deadline, if you will. You can have letters be uploaded after you hit the submit button. It's just a bit of a pain. It's not going to look good. You're going to have to email folks. It's just more work for you. You're going to want to have everything ready when you hit the submit button. The whole point of this slide is just to have a consideration of ensuring that you as the student are prepared as early as possible. And ECFMG does recommend submitting your supporting documents by a specific date to guarantee their availability. This is just a generic comment that they say the date is usually given to you in September as to when the official submit button is going to be. So be proactive, work backwards to ensure that you are having everything on time. You do not want to be scrambling the last minute to ensure that everything is together. This is a very big process in your life. This is a very big process to ensure that the next step after medical school is secure. Do what you have to do ahead of time to ensure that you have everything together. So that's everything. The whole point of this is for all of you watching this to know this information early on, have it shape your decisions and your relationships with the folks going forward, as the time between now and next September is going to go very quickly. So ensuring that you have letters to bolster your application is huge. I hope this information is worthwhile to you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the members of the Clinical Student Government Association. I've also included the RUSM Connect calendars to help you keep track of all future events, since all CSGA events are on this Connect calendar. And I really appreciate those of you who made time for this. And I hope those of you watching this recording find this valuable as well. Alrighty. Thank you so much.